Okay.
The vendor told me to.
Yeah, I don't know which one we're gonna study, because tomorrow Gurudev and Srila Maharaj. So anyway, keep it here for now. Tomorrow's the big day.
Big day.
Yeah. Double big. Srila Goswami Maharaj also. Yeah.
No, I'm Srila Maharaj.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time I've been here in New Braj. Haribol, some kind of echoey.
That's because I put the speakers here, Maharaj.
Uh-huh.
It makes them.
Haribol, is that okay?
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, did you speak now?
Haribol, yeah, that's better.
I put them here so it sounds a little echo.
Yeah. I think we gotta turn that speaker slightly.
Which one?
The big one, just turn it slightly. Yeah, like that. That's good. Haribol, Haribol. Jai Saparikar Shishi Guru Gauranga. Oh, Radha Govinda are not bright enough. That's what's not there. Yeah, perfect. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharika Giridhari Shishi Radha Govinda Jiu Ki Jai Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai Shri Nishringa Bhagavan Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahamsa Tatasata Shri Srila Abhay Charanarvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahamsa Tarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahamsa Tarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahamsa Tarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahamsa Tarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahamsa Tarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahamsa Tarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Mahabhagavat Srila Gaurkishora Das Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Vaishnav Sarvam Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Srila Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Gaura Parsada Vrinda Ki Jai Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sigaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dvarashavanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dham Ki Jai Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Radha Gopinath Radha Madan Mohan Jiyo Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Radha Shyama Sundar Radha Raman Radha Damodara Jiyo Ki Jai Jai Shrimati Lalita Vishaka Adi Ashta Sakhi Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Rupa Manjari Rati Manjari Adi Manjari Vrinda Ki Jai Shrimati Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shrimati Paranamasi Yogamaya Devi Ki Jai Shri Gopishwar Mahadev Ki Jai Sarva Bhishta Pradata Giriraj Govardhana ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Jagannatha Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiu ki jai, Jagannath Puri Kshetra Dhama ki jai, Bhakti Vinda Vinashana Shri Nrsinga Dev ki jai, Bhakta Prabhu Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Charodam Charu Sampradaya Charu Acharya ki jai, Akara Mataraj Shri Chaitanya Mat ki jai, Orananya Shakamat Samuha ki jai, Shri Vishva Vaishnav Raj Sabha ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Tribhuvana Pavana Harinam Sankirtana ki jai, Tribhuvana Mangala Harinama Prabhu ki jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Shri Nityananda Mahajana ki jai, Shri Panchatattva ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuruna Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bhangam Mangayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Chishe Namah He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My Dandavat pranams and Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa, Asto Tarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And the same unlimited Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Sto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Sto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And my Dandavat pranams to all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So tomorrow is the holy Tirubhav Mahamahotsav Titi of our most worshipful beloved Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And it is also the Avirbhav, the appearance day of his worshipable godbrother and intimate associate, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Raman Goswami Maharaj. So here in New Braj we'll be celebrating a Maha Mahotsav, very great festival here. And of course the topic will be separation mood from our Gurudev and the principle of Guru Tattva. What is Guru Tattva? On these days, it is necessary to deeply reflect on our relationship. What is the relationship between Guru and disciple? And who is Sri Guru? What is his identity? We have our prayers that we recite every day, especially Guru Vastakam by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. 8 prayers to the spiritual master. This was personally sung by our Srila Prabhupada here when he came to the West to acquaint everyone with the principle of Sri Guru. Who is Guru? What are his characteristics? What are his activities? What is his relationship with his disciples? What are his internal moods? His deep personal internal moods. This is all mentioned in the Guru Vastakam. So Srila Prabhupada gave us those 8 prayers, and he personally recorded those and sung those in the famous first record album. In those days they had record albums. I don't think the young generation has even seen with their eyes such ancient relics. But in some ways they were even better than the digital, some people say. At any rate, that's what we had. Srila Prabhupada went into a recording studio with his early disciples, quite early on, in 1966. And he, I think in one session only, without second or third, he sang with his disciples. On one side of the record, he sang Vandeham Shri Guru and Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Mahamantra. And he also, after the kirtan of the Mahamantra, then he also recorded a short presentation that he had written on the meaning of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That's called Unchanting Hare Krishna. There was a small pamphlet for distribution to the masses of people. I don't know how many hundreds of millions of those have been distributed, actually. This small pamphlet, Unchanting Hare Krishna. And so that lecture was also placed in that small pamphlet. Then on the other side of the record album, he sang the Guru Vastakam prayers. Samsara dava nalalita loka Tranaya karuna gana gana tvam Praptasya kalyana gunarna pasya Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam Mahaprabho Kirtanamrita Gita Varikramadyan Manasora Sena Romanchakampa Shutaranga Bhaja Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. Like this. I have a very personal, special attachment to this kirtan, to this song, because not only did we always listen to that quite regularly, we didn't have other lectures in those days. When I came in 1970, there was like 3 different record albums One of them was this one. It ended up being called the Happening album. I think it was because the record company's name was Happening something, you know. So it became known as the Happening record. We had that one, and we also had another one that had been recorded at the Ratha Yatra festival in San Francisco. I believe it might have been like 1968 or 69, but it was recorded. The live kirtan that Srila Prabhupada up on a stage in some hall in San Francisco. Srila Prabhupada sang kirtan, and he went through Bande Hum, the Mangala Charana that we have in our songbook, all the different prayers to the spiritual masters in the disciplic succession, each of their pranam mantras, like that. And yeah, and then long Hare Krishna, long Hare Krishna. He didn't speak on that album. And the other third record album that we had was the Brahma Samhita. And I think on one side of the record was also prayers to the six Goswamis. And that's the most beautiful, mystical, it has a sitar. They hired some sitar player to also, I don't know if he was during the recording or later on, it was added. But in the background, he's playing this beautiful sitar music. And Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Paro Premamritambo Nidhi Dhira Dhira Jana Priyo Priyakaro Premamritam Bonidhi. I forgot. Dhira Dhira Jana Priyo Priyakaro Nirmatsaro Pujito Anandam Buddhi Vardhanaika Nipano. No, I'm forgetting. Let me see. Uvivuvo Bharavahantarako Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Sri Jiva Gopalako. What page is that on? Krishna Kirtana. Okay, 264 in the songbook. Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Nirmatsara Shri Chaitanya Kripa Bharo Bhuvi Bhuro Bharavahantarako Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Sri Jiva Gopalako. So Prabhupada was singing that on one side of the record, and on the other side he sang a few verses from Brahma Samhita. Chintamani prakara sadamasu kalpa vriksha lakshavriteshu surabhirabi palayantam lakshmi sahasra satasam brahmasevyamanam govindamadi purusham Tamaham bhajami. That's his melody. So we used to listen to that, and then he read a small section of the introduction of Brahma Samhita, which was actually written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Bengali and then translated into English. And it was what we thought was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's English, but actually it was Professor Nishikanta Sanyal, his Sanskrit professor, university professor, disciple, who had really translated the Bengali into English. But his English was very high-level British India English, and it sounded just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's English. But it begins with a statement, the materialistic deminar. And I always wondered, what is a deminar? But actually the word was demeanor. The materialistic deminar cannot possibly stretch to the transcendental autocrat who is forever inviting the fallen conditioned souls to associate with him through pure devotion, something like that.
So that wasn't Bhaktisiddhanta.
No, that was a mistake, which was corrected by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, because they thought that Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wrote a commentary on the Brahma Samhita. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, no, he did not. And then they were wondering, well then, who wrote it? But years later, we actually, in the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, they translated an edition of the Brahma Samhita, and they included the Bengali. They included the Bengali of Bhakti Vinod Thakur in English, English letters. Bengali, not in it was in Bengali. On the above half of the page, then there was a line, and then below was the translation in English. And that translation was the same. They were doing another translation from the Bengali of Bhakti Vinod Thakur into English. And because I can read Bengali font and understand to some extent, I was watching how each sentence, how the Bengali was translated into the English. So it's the same meaning, but different style of English and presentation of Professor Sanyal. But the Brahma Samhita was done during the presence of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So actually he was publishing Bhakti Vinod Thakur's commentary on that. And then also the translation of it. It was done under the editorship of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada. Anyway, those are the books. Those are the books that we had. Those were the recordings that we had of Srila Prabhupada, right? And I listened to that recording of Gurvastakam so many times. It was very, very dear to my heart. Even in the recording, you can hear how Prabhupada's voice is choking. In the final days of Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, in the final last month of his manifest presence, I used to go into his room in Vrindavan every day. And because there were so many Western devotees who were there in Vrindavan, also the Gurukula was going on, and so there was at least about 200 or so Western devotees, men, ladies, children. And so Prabhupada had expressed his desire that there would be the chanting, there would be kirtan going on in his room all day long, till around 9 o'clock in the evening, something like that. And then Prabhupada would not have any kirtan during the evening when he was resting. And so we arranged for there to be a shift of a small group of devotees that would continue throughout the day. So each shift, I think we would sing for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And it would not be loud kirtan, very soft, very soft. and small kartals, very small kartals, no mridanga, like that. So it was going on in the background. Prabhupada wanted that. But then one day, one of Prabhupada's disciples, who was an earlier disciple, joined in New York, became very well known as one of the artists. Now that I'm getting older, names are slipping. Bharadraj. Yes, Bharadraj. Bharadraj was
here.
Huh?
I saw him here back.
Yeah. Bharadraj was actually also extremely expert artistically, but he was also a very expert singer. He sang, his voice was very good singer. And there were various kirtan recordings of the old New York temple. They were famous, they were shared all around the movement in those days, with him leading the kirtan. So when he arrived in Vrindavan, then he came into the room and he brought a harmonium. And that harmonium was being kept there for him to play. And he would come in and sit, and it was during my shift. I think my shift was like from maybe 9 o'clock in the morning till 10:30, something like that. And he came, and everybody knew that Prabhupada he actually liked the singing of Bharadraj. And so then Srila Prabhupada was listening as he was singing. And he was playing harmonium, and we had the small kartals, right? So I had a desire hidden in my heart that I wanted to lead kirtan for Srila Prabhupada, right? I had that desire. And it didn't get fulfilled prior to that, when he was in various locations around the world, in India, in New York, in Detroit, in different places where I had seen Prabhupada. And so anyway, this would happen on a particular day, a couple of days into Bharadraj's visit. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Jiva Ki Jai. Jai Shri Jagannath. Yeah, so he was playing the harmonium and singing. But then some devotee came into the room and whispered something in his ear, and then he looked over. I happened to be sitting next to him, and there was like 2 or 3 other devotees. And he said, I have to go out of the room. Can you play harmonium? He asked me. I said, yes. Oh, then you take over until I come back. Yes. So then I began to play the harmonium, and I was playing it in a little bit of a Bengali-like style, because I had spent some months in Mayapur, before coming to Vrindavan. And I was also learning different mridanga beats and so forth. Anyway, I began to sing the Gurvastakam. And so as I was singing, I was pouring out my heart to Srila Prabhupada, And I sang the same melody that he sang on his recording. I sang that same melody. And anyway, this went on for 15 minutes, and then I began to sing Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Hare Krishna, and like that. And then Bharadraj returned back to the room. And then I stopped singing, and I pushed the harmonium over to him, and then he began to sing again. Then I paid obeisances and I left the room because it was my time to do some other seva that I had to do. So I left Prabhupada's room and I went all the way to the front side of the property where we were staying in this 3-story tall Gurukula building. Where most of the Western devotees were staying there. And I was up on the 3rd floor, and all of a sudden I heard a voice calling from below. Urukram, where's Urukram? I said, oh, I'm up here. It was Jayadvaita, brahmachari at that time. And he said, come down immediately. Prabhupada is calling for you. And I thought, what? He's calling for me? I immediately just started running down the stairs. And when I got to the bottom of the stairs, we started walking together to the rear of the property where Prabhupada's house is. And as we were walking, because, you know, I was one of the disciples that most of Prabhupada's disciples didn't have practically any personal direct exchanges with him. I mean, there was a few thousand disciples. It was mostly only those who were temple presidents and so forth. Yeah? You want to sit?
Oh no, I've been sitting a long time.
Yeah, so, you know, in my mind I was thinking, Prabhupada's calling for me? How does he know? You know, who I am, like that. So I asked Jayadvaita, I said, what is Prabhupada calling for? He says, well, after you left the room and Bhardraj continued to sing, within a minute or two, Srila Prabhupada spoke, because Prabhupada is simply lying there on his bed. And whenever he would speak even one word, immediately everything would stop. And devotees would come towards the bed. So then Jayadvaita said, then Prabhupada, he asked, who was that chanting before? And then they said, oh, that's your American disciple, Urukram Das Brahmachari. Oh, And then he didn't say anything more, and then the chanting again continued. Within another minute, after the chanting continued, then again Prabhupada asked, who was that chanting before? Oh, that's your disciple, Urukram Das Brahmachari. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was the secretary, he said, go immediately and bring Urukram. So, as we're walking towards the house, I'm hearing this, that Prabhupada personally asked about me. And it was such a confirmation to me that Prabhupada, he could hear and understand everything. What was my mood, how I was pleading in my heart for his mercy and glorifying him like that. So then, when I came back into the room and paid my obeisances, then Bhardraj pushed the harmonium in front of me, and then I got to sing again for Srila Prabhupada. And as I was singing, Srila Prabhupada's sister entered the room. We called her Pishima. Actually, Pishima means auntie in Bengali, Pishima. But we called her Pishima. I didn't even know her actual name was Bhavatarini. Right? So, but when she entered, she looked exactly like Srila Prabhupada. If you see photos of her, I mean, I actually, the first time I ever saw her, in Mayapur, in 1975, I went up into the building where Prabhupada was, and then I came around the hall, because it was like, you could walk all the way around. It had verandas on every floor, all the way around the building. And all of a sudden, as I came around, it looked like Srila Prabhupada, exactly like him. She was just leaning against the wall, you know. But then I saw, oh, this is a female. This is not Prabhupada. Her side view looked almost identical to Srila Prabhupada.
Huh.
Yeah. At any rate, she entered into the room when I was chanting and singing, and she went, like with a big smile on her face, she liked my chanting. So that was my experience singing Gurvastakam directly to Srila Prabhupada in his own melody that he sang it. And after that, because the devotees got to know, especially the leaders that were there, that Prabhupada liked my chanting. So, after Prabhupada departed, his samadhi, I was there for some days more, and they made me in charge of the kirtan schedule of the morning Guru Puja. So all of the big leaders, they had to come to me and say, hey, Urgram, put me on the schedule for such and such day. I want to lead the kirtan. Oh, I'll consider it. Anyway, but not only that, there's another connection with Gurvastakam, and that is in 2010, Srila Gurudev's final pastimes in Jagannath Puri, the final day before he left. I think it was, it was 2 days before his departure. On the final day before his departure, he didn't come out. What was happening in Puri is that we were chanting kirtan for Srila Prabhupada, for Srila Gurudev, because Gurudev was going on the veranda. There was 2 verandas, one on each side, same building we have now, which has a sitting area to look out at the beach, at the ocean. So every morning, Gurudev was walking for most of the few weeks. I was there for maybe 3 weeks with him before he departed. And he was walking and he would sit on one veranda and look out at the ocean in the morning, and then, his health was not good at that time. Then he would walk through the hallway and come out onto the other veranda. And then he would also sit there. And that was like his morning walk, like that. And so, not to disturb him, they didn't want any devotees to come so that Gurudev doesn't have to speak anything, he can just sit. So on this particular morning, I came out onto the sand in front of the building, which is actually a hotel. How many of you have been there? You've been there. So then I came out, and Gurudev would always go, if you're facing towards the building, not towards the ocean, then it's on the left side. So Gurudev would first come there and sit. So by the time that I came out, Mahibharta Prabhu was singing kirtan there. He was singing kirtan. And so then when Srila Gurudev, actually that morning, he came on a wheelchair. And that's the first day that he was on a wheelchair. He wasn't walking. So he came on a wheelchair that morning, and he sat. And so that kirtan was going on. And then, when Gurudev came to the other veranda, it took quite a while for him to come. And we didn't learn until later, because in the middle of the building is his room on the same floor. So they wheeled him, and Madhav Maharaj, he wanted Gurudev, because he wasn't well, to come and go back to his room. But actually Gurudev didn't want to, so they brought him to the other veranda. And then, you see, at that time of the morning, there was a Guru Puja going on inside the temple room, which was up on the rooftop. Jagannath deities and everything. So that was going on in the temple room. And this time, I thought, oh, Gurudev is here. We should do Guru Puja directly to him. So I told, bring the Pujari down here. And so the Pujari came and actually started to do Guru Puja to Gurudev from below. Gurudev was there, we could see his head. And so I began to sing Gurvastakam to Srila Gurudev. And I sang it again in that very same melody. And you know, something interesting was happening, because as I was singing it, a couple of times during that time, during the song, Madhav Maharaj was talking to Gurudev in his ear and desiring to bring him back to the room. But Gurudev, we could visibly see that Gurudev said, like that. He wanted to stay. And it happened twice. And that gave us so much more enthusiasm. And we thought, oh, Gurudev, he's accepting our Guru Puja. He's listening. So we continued. And not until the end of the Gurvastakam, when we started to chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Hare Krishna, then Gurudev, he agreed, and then they began to wheel him back to his room. So what we did was we ran up the stairs on the side of the building into the vestibule, the entryway. And there's also, the veranda is up there where you can see, there's like, you know, Gurudev. Then when Gurudev came, we started this big kirtan. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, and below, a whole bunch of devotees. And Gurudev, they turned his wheelchair to look down at us. To look down at us. Gurudev listened for a few minutes, then he raised his hand. Blessings. Then they turned and they wheeled him into his room. And we were thinking, oh, we should do this every morning. Gurudev is accepting our Guru Puja in this way. The next day, he didn't come out onto the veranda. That next day evening, I remember at about 10 o'clock, 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I was down below of Gurudev's room, and there's a swimming pool there. It was full with water and everything. And I remember standing there and speaking with, I think it was Raghunath Prabhu from Peru, lives in Miami. I was reflecting and I was saying, because they had tried to bring these Ayurvedic Kavirajas. They came in the final days, the final like 5 days. And they came all the way from South India and from Malaysia. And these were Acharya Kavirajas of a very powerful South Indian Siddha medicine and everything. And they put together some potions for Gurudev specifically. But although it was administered, then it wasn't to be. So on that evening, because during the day we were hearing reports that Gurudev was, the medicines did not get the desired result. And so then I thought that evening, down at the poolside and looking up, and I thought, tomorrow is the appearance day of Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj. And during the Kartik month, 1 month before, during the Kartik month is the disappearance day of Srila Vaman Maharaj and Srila Trivikram Maharaj on the same day. And that Kartik they had such a strong desire that Gurudev would not leave. And they tried to do all kinds of mantras and chanting all through the night. Premananda Prabhu and so many of his brahmacharis. So, because they didn't want Gurudev to leave, so they thought, no, we can't let him go. We have to do these mantras. So, Gurudev wanted, that is actually his desire, that he wanted to depart on the same day as his two god brothers. All three of them, right, would be celebrated every year on the same day, their Tirabhav. So that didn't happen. Of course, everything is under Krishna's control, and Krishna and the pure devotee is completely surrendered to Krishna. So I was reflecting on the fact that Gurudev had that desire during Kartik to leave this world on the same day as his godbrothers. But that did not happen. And then I remember telling to the devotee, I said, you know, tomorrow is the appearance day of Srila Maharaj. I wonder if Gurudev will, because he's fully in control. They weren't even telling Gurudev what day it was in the Vaishnava calendar, like whether it's Ekadasi or this or that, because they didn't want Gurudev to, his physical condition, they didn't want him to undergo any difficulty by having to fast from grains and this and that. But yet, this was the fact. 3 o'clock in the morning, then some hours later, then Srila Gurudev performed his final pastime. So, so in this way, Srila Gurudev, his glory and his contribution and his personality, they will be glorified for hundreds, thousands of years into the future. Tomorrow we will hear so many glorifications of Srila Gurudev, and different devotees will also speak some Pushpanjali. They'll offer Pushpanjali to Srila Gurudev, Srila Vaman Maharaj. So what is the meaning of Guruvashtakam? We reflect for a few minutes before the end of our program. Guruvashtakams, in every verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written that song. And he's saying, Bande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. That means I offer my vandanam, my prayers, to the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Samsara dava nalalita loka tranaya karunya gana ganatvam. That Sri Guru is like a rain cloud of mercy. And just as a rain cloud pours water on a blazing forest fire, samsara dava anala lita loka. He's describing that this material samsara is like a blazing forest fire for the conditioned souls. Birth, death, disease, old age. And the living entities are suffering. But just as a rain cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master, by pouring a rain cloud of mercy onto the whole world, he extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence. And praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya. He, just like a rain cloud, draws water from the ocean. Actually, a rain cloud is coming from the water, being drawn from the ocean. So in the same way, Sri Guru is receiving benedictions from the ocean of mercy, Krishna, who is the ocean of mercy. Praptasya Kalyana Gunarnavasya. And Sri Guru is an ocean, he is an ocean of Guna Arnavasya, of transcendental qualities, Sri Guru, like an ocean of transcendental qualities. Then Mahaprabhu Kirtanan Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manaso Rasena. Oh, Sri Gurudev is so much overwhelmed in performing Mahaprabhu Kirtan, all the transcendental Kirtan process that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has invented to give to the whole world, this Yuga Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan. And Sri Guru is always very overwhelmed in performing Mahaprabhu Kirtan. Nritya Gita, also dancing, singing, Vaditra, playing musical instruments, Madhyan Manaso Rasena. Manaso Rasena means he is relishing in his mind, he is relishing the Kirtan of Gauranga Mahaprabhu and completely absorbed in Harinam. Romancha Kampasru Tarangabhaju. Romancha means hairs are standing on end. Symptoms of ecstasy are coming in the body of Sri Guru when he does this kirtan. Kampa Ashru. Kampa means trembling of the body. These are all Ashtasattvic vikars, 8 different transformations of the body. Romancha Kampa Ashru Taranga. And just like waves, the tears of ecstasy are coming from his eyes like waves. Ashru Taranga Bhaju. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda. Shri Vigraha Aradhana Nityanana Shringaratan Mandira Marjanado Yuktasya Bhaktamscha Niyunjatovi Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda. Shri Vigraha means the Radha and Krishna's beautiful, sweet Archa Vigrahas. Shri Gurudev is always engaged in worshipping. Aradhana means to worship the forms of the Lord, Mahaprabhu, Radha and Krishna, Jagannath, so on. So, Shri Vigraha Aradhana Nityanana Shringara. Nityanana Shringara means various paraphernalia, worshipping the Lord with and dressing very nicely the transcendental forms of the Lord. Constantly, Nitya, regularly he's doing. Shringar. Shringar means to decorate, but also Shringar means Shringar Ras. And Shringar Ras is Madhurya Ras. So, in this way, he is worshipping Radha and Krishna in these very deep moods. Mandira Marjanado, also cleaning the temple. Mandira Marjana. Marjana means cleaning. We know that Mahaprabhu taught this in the Ratha Yatra pastimes. He personally cleansed the temple of Jagannath in Jagannath Puri, at Sundara Achala, that temple there, Gundicha. And so Sri Guru is teaching, and then it says, Yuktasya Bhaktamscha Niyunjatopi. That means he's also engaging his disciples in this worship of Radha and Krishna. Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda. And I'll only say one more, because now it's time for Arti. So, Chaturvida Sri Bhagavat Prasado Sadvana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Kritaiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. Sri Guru is always offering 4 kinds of foodstuffs, right? Chatur means 4. Sri Vida means 4 types. And in our translation, we used to say, what 4 types? Those which are chewed, licked up, drunk, and swallowed. Right? Chaturvida Sri Bhagavat. Sadhuvana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangha. And he's always relishing this Bhagavat Prasadam, Hari Bhakta Sangha, in the association of the Hari Bhaktas. Kriptaiva Triptim Bhajadosadaiva. When he sees that his disciples are taking Bhagavat Prasadam, he becomes fully satisfied to see that. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. And just one last little comment on that line. Srila Prabhupada personally spoke that line in his final days. I was right there listening to him telling. He was requesting information that are all of his disciples getting very nice prasadam, right? So his secretary reported to Prabhupada in front of everyone. We were all around Prabhupada's bed. This was within 2 weeks of his departure, and he was fasting, not eating anything for a number of days, which was alarming the devotees. That's a whole other thing. But he was inquiring about his disciples. Are they getting nice quality Bhagavat Prasadam? Then Tamal Krishna Maharaj started to tell, oh yes, Prabhupada, every day we have such and such devotee, your disciple, cooking, and he's making at least 2 sabjis, and there's rice, dal, and pakoras every day, and chutney, and sometimes puris, sometimes chapatis, like this. So Prabhupada, you know what Prabhupada said when he heard this? And he was very, very weak at that time, just lying there. And he quoted this line. Chaturvidasri Bhagavat Prasado Kriptraiva Triptim, no, Chaturvidasri Bhagavat Prasado Sadvana Triptim Hari Bhakta Sanghan. He said like that, Hari Bhakta Sanghan. Then he said, the spiritual master is very satisfied when he sees his disciples taking first class prasadam. Gaur Premanande. Vansha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhu bhieva cha patitanam bhavanavyo Shri Gaur Arti ki jai, Shri Radha Krishna Jugal Arti ki jai. Domino.